Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 226th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are in June 9th, 2025, a year of our Lord, and we have, oh my Lord, we have a ton of stuff to cover today, including the fascist assault on Los Angeles, the fascist assault on the mayor of Waldport, Oregon, who's with us. And we're then going to talk to the great Lulu Friesdat about election protection and what's going on with the balloting. We're going to have Kaylee with us to talk about the insane assault on renewable energy in California. And then in the second hour, we're going to go and have an open forum on this attack on Los Angeles, California in general. And I had just before the show, I have just really the perfect phrase for what Trump is doing in California. We are nonpartisan, by the way, so this is going to cut both ways. But what's happening in California is the American version of the burning of the Reichstag. We all knew that there would be an event that would trigger the all-on blitzkrieg toward an American dictatorship. And ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is the attack that we've all been expecting that would be used as an excuse to install martial law and to end whatever is left of American democracy. And lo and behold, of course, it's in the middle of the attempt of the Trump administration to pass this gargantuan assault on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all that stuff, the big, beautiful bill he's talking about. But it's no accident that this suddenly we see federal troops now pouring into Los Angeles. So it is, to repeat, the burning of the Reichstag, and we'll be talking about that in the second hour. We're going to start, as we so often do, with our great poet laureate, Mimi German, who's going to read us her latest screed, and then we will hear from the mayor, the removed then reinstated mayor, the duly elected, then removed, then reinstated mayor of Waldport, Oregon, which is the grassroots um, allegory for what's happening with democracy overall. But Mimi, lead us off, if you will, please.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone today. Nice to be here. The poem I wrote today is called A Recipe for Peace. The meadow grasses through the wild, flowers of the desert stream. Soil mixes with scat and scar. There is no edict for peace, and yet so peaceful at the curve where it meets the fields of clover hovering beneath the hum of bees. Red-winged blackbird sings to the hills. Vulture wings shadow, crisscrossing earth like a tattoo on a ghost's heart. Mountain waters flow through rock and carnage past. Peace, its recipe simple. Water, earth, sun, and song. Is this not eternal?
Well, yes, it is. Now that you say so. Thank you so much, Mimi, as always, for your beautiful poem. We have 87 people with us, and we are rocking and rolling here with a full boat. We're going to start with our favorite mayor, Mayor Heidi of Waldport, Oregon. For those of you who are new to us, the mayor was duly elected last fall, removed by her fascist city council, reinstated by the long arm of the law, and is now facing all sorts of challenges. Mimi, do you want to update us on we are focused on Mimi and Mayor Heidi in many reasons for for just trying to defend the mayor, but this is a real allegory for what's going on with grassroots democracy all over the country. We are glad you're back in power here, Mayor Heidi. Tell us what the latest is.
Well, a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. Uh, I was reinstated, I believe, the same day I was on here last time. It might have been right after. Um, but the judge put or the judge put me back in, so I ran my first meeting on May 22nd. And at that meeting, somebody took a picture of me and called me a gutter rat and said that I should be exterminated. So that turned into a death threat, which now we've gone 2 weeks since, and I found out yesterday that the police have deemed it not a real threat. Um, so it's just sitting there in the land of reports. It's not being investigated, which I'm hoping I did stress that it should be investigated because I'm suspicious of who actually did take the picture and who wrote this. But then on May 26th, they held a special meeting, which they argued that I should not be allowed to come to. It was an executive session about my litigation. I insisted I wanted to be there. So I got there, and check this out, Sluggo. They all got a letter from an attorney, but me. They read the letter and then they shredded the letter. And then they voted to dismiss vacating my seat, or their attempt to vacate my seat. So I was just dumbfounded. I had no idea of what the hell was going on. But it is my understanding is that the city thinks that now my case is moot and that they can just say whatever they want and do whatever they want and be as aggressive as they want, because now I'm back to my seat of being mayor, and they don't think there should be any accountability whatsoever for what they've done to myself, the voters, or to our community over the last 2 months.
And we know we will are trusting that you, of course, are not going to let that happen. We have 100 people on the call, and Mayor Heide, you are facing a city council of 6 people who are hostile to you, plus a city manager. They're all trying to get rid of you. They want to exterminate you, as you've said, and you are fighting back. So we have been following your case with great interest. What is your next step?
Well, so I'm actually waiting to find out what that strategy will be from my legal team. I think that they're very surprised at what has happened as well. I think it's very rare for a case to still continue. That's what I think we're in this weird place because um they kind of like pulled another quick one. They pulled another quick one because they're like, well, now you're back to being mayor, so what's the problem? Never mind all of the problem. Like I wasn't allowed at any of the budget meetings. There's so many questions as to what the hell's going on in City Hall. And you would think that they were working with me, but they're not working with me. This is a facade of what democracy looks like. There is no meeting at the table. There's no collaboration happening.
So basically, then, are you planning to run a recall on the 6 people in the city council that are assaulting you?
So there's plenty of folks in the community who are working on that recall. What's ironic is that the city councilors are saying they're going to now recall me. They're saying the reason why they put me back in my seat was to save the citizens money, and now they can recall me. So the irony really is that it's like who's going to recall who first, I think that we're ahead of them by a few days. So hopefully we'll get our signatures in before they do. But I think there's a chance that the whole council, including myself, could get recalled in all of this nonsense of misinformation.
Well, that'd be exciting. So we will, of course, follow this. Walport, Oregon, for those of you who are new, haven't heard, is a small town on the Pacific Ocean, in the southern part of Oregon. And it used to be a democracy. Mayor Heide here was elected mayor in November, and there are 6 extreme right-wing members of the city council, and they have a hired mayor a city manager, who've been trying to exterminate Heide here, and she's standing up to them, and we are supporting her. So, and it is nonpartisan, by the way. Mayor Heide is not a Republican or a Democrat. She's just a mayor. This is a grassroots Mayberry at its very best. Mimi, did you want to jump in with something real quick?
Well, I want to say that it's pretty incredible to me that they can just say that they're dropping their case against Heidi, But what they've done was an unconstitutional, what I call de-election. And you can't do that. So what, there's nothing that's going to happen now. They just do that and say, oops, and then everything just continues on the way that it was. So I'm really hoping that Jesse, who is the mayor's lawyer, finds a way to get back around to the initial thing. The thing that eroded democracy in Waldport was these 6 city officials who unconstitutionally, in the words of a judge, de-elected the mayor.
It's really amazing. Well, at least they didn't defenestrate you, which is throwing you out of a window, but I guess that could come next. It is quite astounding. It is America 2025 at its peak here. And speaking of which, for those of you who just come in, we're up to 110 folks, including my buddies from Michigan, Alyssa Matras and Dave Saltman. Great to have you with us. We are going to, in the second hour, devote the hour to what's going on in Los Angeles, which I am now officially calling the American Reichstag burning, which is very clear what's going on here. So, Mayor Lampert, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your time, and you keep coming to us. Does anybody want to comment before we move? Is Lulu Friesdat on with us yet, or
No,
Kaylee?
I'm not seeing her. Nope.
How about Kaylee Underhill? Is Kaylee with us yet? Okay, Kaylee was going to go in the second hour. Okay, so Mayor Lambert, we want to thank you again for coming with us. I want to call real quickly now KARL GROSSMAN. KARL, are you with us? KARL and I have put out a piece on the internet. It's been at Counterpunch, freepress.org, Smirking Chimp, and a few other places. The one thing that Donald Trump and the governor of California, who are now threatening each other, back in the day they would have gone to Weehawken and had a duel, but that's not going to happen right now. But KARL, are you with us? We want to talk very quickly about the piece we've put out, which we do have the link on nuclear power. And I will say one thing that there's KARL. How you doing, buddy? One thing that's happening in California, and we've been talking about, and we will talk in greater depth about the Olympics that are planned for LA in 2028, and the World Cup, which is planned for New Jersey in 26. I mean, can the United States as a country really have these events, given what's going on with the president and his assault on incoming people from other countries? But the one question about LA is the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant, which is 4 hours upwind from LA and is uninsured. It was scheduled to close in 2024 and 5 in an agreement signed by Gavin Newsom when he was lieutenant governor. And now he has opened the floodgates to keep Diablo Canyon operating. And KARL and I have written this piece, which is, as I say now, at Counterpunch and elsewhere. And the question is, can Los Angeles and the state of California, in good conscience, hold the Olympics in 2028 while Diablo Canyon is operating? There's another piece making the rounds by Linda Gunter about nuclear, but the bottom line is, they are telling us, and the Olympic Committee is, of course, all set to go with these 2 reactors, but there's no insurance. Nobody will insure these atomic reactors. And KARL and I, who've been writing about this since before the dawn of time, have raised the issue that Trump and Newsom are in agreement on pushing forward with nuclear power. KARL, did you want to comment on this before we are joined by Kaylee Underhill to talk about this bill in California?
Yeah, well, these were a series of executive orders that were issued by Trump on May 23rd. And the lead to our piece is Donald Trump on May 23rd declared nuclear power to be a, quote, a hot industry.
That's an interesting choice of adjectives there. Hot. I like that.
Well, nuclear.
You and I have been saying that for a long time. That nuclear power is a hot industry.
Nuclear power plants are very safe. This is a quote, and environmental. This is at this gathering that he held in the White House, in the Oval Office of the White House, with executives of the nuclear industry, including the president of Constellation Energy, which is the largest nuclear power operator in the U.S. Jake DeWitt, he's the CEO of Oklo, also they're pushing the Oklo, the so-called advanced nuclear plants, despite the fact that these so-called advanced plants were pushed out decades ago, and it all didn't work, but they're being wheeled out again. And Maria Korsnick, she was also there, president and CEO of the Nuclear Energy Institute, the main nuclear power lobbying organization. In many ways, you mentioned one way, of course, Harvey, which is pretty important, the issue of insurance. And I mentioned last week that everybody's homeowner's insurance in the United States has the nuclear clause, which says this policy does not cause loss or damage caused by nuclear reaction or nuclear radiation or radioactive contamination. But other points in our piece, way high up, is Trump failing to mention nuclear power plants are subject to catastrophic accidents, such as Fukushima, Chernobyl, and the 3 Mile Island disaster. And in routine operation, they release deadly radioactive emissions. Also, the nuclear fuel cycle, mining, milling, enrichment of nuclear fuel is highly carbon intensive. And I mean, there goes the main claim these days that nuclear power is necessary to deal with climate change. It, in fact, contributes the nuclear fuel cycle to climate change. We go on and on about what he failed to mention, and then go on to what's in each of these executive orders. Here's one: ordering the reform of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. It says he wants a reformed NRC to reestablish the United States as the global leader in nuclear energy and facilitate the expansion of American nuclear energy capacity from approximately 100 gigawatts to, this is in 2024, last year, to 400 gigawatts by 2050. And we quote all kind of people in this piece talking about for example, the significance of it. Dr. Gregory Jasko, he's a physicist, chairman a bunch of years of the NRC, said that Trump's orders show he is committed to further lawlessness, more nuclear accidents, and less nuclear safety. This guillotine to the nation's nuclear safety system will only make the country less safe, the industry less reliable, and the climate crisis more severe. The executive orders look like someone asked an AA, artificial intelligence, quote, how do we make the nuclear industry worse in this country? Here's Ed Lyman of the Union of Concerned Scientists. Simply put, the U.S. nuclear industry will fail if safety is not made a priority by fatally compromising the independence and integrity of the NRC, says Lyman, who's also a physicist, by encouraging pathways for nuclear deployment that bypass the regulator entirely. The Trump administration is virtually guaranteeing that this country will see a serious accident or other radiological release that will affect health, safety, and livelihoods of millions. And it goes on. It's a very
So this is
comprehensive
and this,
piece.
of course, is a place where Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump have joined forces because in California we had an agreement in 2018 to shut the two reactors at Diablo Canyon, which is 4 hours upwind of Los Angeles, and now we have and Newsom came in and has sabotaged that and is also sabotaging the solar industry in California and around the country. And this is a major piece of what's going on in the United States. And with this huge bill that Trump is pushing through, because in that bill they basically destroy the American solar energy industry, and for the benefit of the fossil fuel and nuclear power industries. And we're seeing that played out in California to the incredible detriment of all of us. I live in LA. MYLA does, Nancy Naparco, and our electric bills are the highest in the country, except for Hawaii. Weirdly enough, the reason Hawaii's bills are so high is because they get their electricity, being in the middle of the ocean, they get their electricity from oil. But that's changing fast. But on the continental United States, California has the highest electric bills because we're being taxed $11 billion to pay for these nuclear plants, which were supposed to have been shut now, and which now are a direct threat to the Olympics in 2028. We know, and we keep seeing articles time and again about the danger of earthquakes and the danger of tsunamis in California. And God forbid there should be another earthquake, which we all know is going to happen in Southern California or anywhere in California. The Diablo Canyon nukes are 45 miles from the San Andreas Fault. That's half the distance that Fukushima was from the epicenter of the earthquake that caused that catastrophe. So, we are going to be talking further about this, fascist assault on Los Angeles. But in the meantime, we have, and whether it disqualifies LA from having the Olympics, but we also have to question whether the reactors the city being downwind from these two reactors also should disqualify us from having the Olympics. I mean, I would love to take my grandchildren to the Olympics upcoming. I'll have to save up to buy tickets. I have to find some obscure event that nobody else wants to go to, maybe. But this is something to be dealt with, and it's Newsom is going to emerge from this as a hero. But he screwed us on nuclear power, and can't let that go on. Carl, do you want to jump in? And then
Yeah, well,
Myla from
th-
LA,
these,
please.
these were the last two nuclear plants operating in California. And it's not just the San Andreas Fault 40 miles away. There's a multiplicity of earthquake faults. It's close to 2 miles from the twin Diablo Canyon plants. I mean, I've driven around those two nuclear plants, and the other big industry in that area of California are hot spas. I mean,
Right.
this is an unstable area prone to earthquakes. And here, these two that were supposed to be shut, Gavin Newsom has arranged a bailout, and they would continue on. And it isn't just Newsom. Let me note. I mean, this is the so distressing part of this issue. Where I live in the state of New York, Governor Hochul wants to make New York State the nuclear energy capital of the United States. So she's pushing a variety of, including these so-called advanced nuclear power plants in New York State. You have in Massachusetts, not in Massachusetts, in Wisconsin. No, it's Michigan. Gretchen, what's her last
Whitmer,
name?
yeah, Whitmer. She's pushing the reopening of the shut reactor at Palisades. All across the country, Carl, as you well know, we have Democratic governors who are pushing nuclear power. And, you know, Trump has just jacked everything up to another level. But you've got the Democratic governors in New York, New Jersey, California, Wisconsin, Michigan, pushing nuclear power. It's in Massachusetts now. It's infuriating. So we will have in the second hour. We're going to talk with Kaylee Underhill about you know, a terrible bill in California. Just before we get deeper into the issue of what's going on in LA, we got 130 people with us, and Anna Georgy in Western Mass is with us. Anna has been a veteran of the fight against nuclear power and just had a victory against a battery storage plant that we've been fighting. Anna, if you want, raise your hand and jump in. Meanwhile, Heidi Verkhampt, do you want to speak real quickly, please? And then
Yes.
Anna will come to you if
Can you
want to
hear
speak.
me?
Yes, go ahead, Heidi.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention because I did not know about all this nuclear stuff. Second of all, I want to remind people just how much of threat nuclear power would be to the East Coast, because when we were part of Occupy Maine, we were sending our Occupy Maine members down to Occupy Sandy to get people out of trouble with the Hurricane Sandy situation, and more people got involved and were able to do more things than the traditional Red Cross were able to do. So we would really need to set up some sort of, like, is anybody talking about setting up some sort of emergency plan in case any of these things fail?
No, you know, there's no evacuation plan that works. I mean, we had the Seabrook plant in federal court with the governor of Massachusetts, who was Dukakis at the time, and we lost. And we also lost on evacuation in Ohio, where the governor, Dick Celeste, challenged the license of the Perry nuclear plant, and they wouldn't even allow him to do a study of evacuation from an accident at the Perry nuclear plant, which was the first nuclear power plant in the United States to be damaged by an earthquake in Perry, Ohio, for God's sakes. And it got hit again just a few years ago, Perry. So it's the first to be hit twice by an earthquake, and they do not have an approved evacuation plan. So thank you for that, Heidi.
And
Well-
Harvey, if
well,
I can
that's-
mention, Heidi was my student at Long Island University's Friends World College. And on
Oh.
Long Island, the plan was to build 7 to 11 nuclear power plants to make Long Island, in the jargon of the nuclear promoters of the time, a nuclear park. And under the category what to do, what was done in New York State was, well, it was a grassroots effort. People wrote, they became aware, they rose up, and that plan to make Long Island a nuclear park, it was killed. And the first of the 7 to 11, the Shoreham nuclear plant, completed and so forth, went through problem riddled, to put it mildly, low power testing, and then was thankfully shut down.
Yeah.
There
Well,
was
of
a
course,
success.
as you mentioned in a previous call, there was a very firm evacuation plan laid out by a local official at Shoreham, which was to swim to the vineyard. So thankfully that didn't happen. Anna Georgy, you have just come from a victory in Western Mass. You now have 2 victories under your belt, helping stop the Montague nuclear plant and now stopping this battery facility. What's your advice on how to do this?
It's got to be grassroots organizing, you know, and working with every part of the, you know, the population. We're having a whole series of problems around a state taking over a siting and permitting. you know, and so that local boards will have very little, if any, power to stop inappropriate, you know, corporate-based facilities. But one thing I want to mention is, and it's related to the fight against battery storage, is I think we really need to link our discussion of nuclear power now also to the absolute craziness of data centers and AI and the renewal of nuclear power, you know, as a source of energy. There's not much questioning about the idea in Massachusetts that we need like a fourfold increase in electricity. And it's really, I think we have to, you know, connect the dots on this issue. And it really is an anti-corporate issue. And the fact that one Trump legislation, or proposed, I think, I'm sure you know more about it, is that states wouldn't be able to regulate AI. And
Right.
most people don't even know what it is, and yet it's infiltrating in everywhere.
Right.
And it's looking to build data centers in rural areas, you know, and like battery storage is related to the data centers because it's
Right.
a way to store electrical energy. And you know from this Moss Landing fire in
Yep.
California how dangerous that is.
Horrible. And of course, it's reminiscent of the 1996 Telecommunications Act from Clinton Gore, where they told local communities that they have no ability to regulate cell towers. And we've been living with that for 30 years. And the whole fight against, you know, electromagnetic frequencies has been hamstrung because the feds came in and said, well, you local communities can make no objections based on health. It's ridiculous. And now we're seeing deja vu all over again with AI, where they're restricting local communities from having any say. It's insane. And congrats again on your victory over that battery storage. And I will say,
Yep,
you know,
Lulu
much to my
Friesdat is
dismay,
here.
having been born in Boston, that the so-called liberal governor, Healy, is now supporting nuclear power. I mean, come on. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I know it's really well, and nuclear is written into the energy legislation as safe energy. So there's
Right.
a campaign statewide to at least, I mean, there's so many things going on at once, but get that out of the legal definition of a safe source of energy.
It's
And
insane.
And Anna, it's always listed also as green energy. It's safe and green and too cheap to meter.
Yeah,
Well, you'll remember in The Simpsons that the nuclear waste was always green. So I guess that's what they were thinking. Anna, did you want to say something? I want to go to
I
Danielle
just
and
wanted
Steve.
to thank Carl for, you know, mentioning the whole fuel chain and, you know, all the mining and milling and just all the polluting aspects of the nuclear fuel cycle. Plus, it generates so much heat, which is something we didn't really talk about back in the earlier movement, you know, but now it's really just another relevant thing. And I just want to say, I think the movie Far Out is very timely because it brings up this nuclear issue to a whole new generation.
Right.
We hope.
We have a movie out with Anna and I are in from the hippie days. I call it the naked hippie movie, but you know that's just a come on. And thankfully I'm not. But anyway, there is a movie Far Out. You can email me solartopia@gmail and I'll send you a link if you want to see this 90-minute documentary about the farm Anna and I grew up on, basically about the rise of the No Nukes movement. Thank you, Anna, for joining us. We have 136 people with us, and Lulu Friesdat has joined us. She's here to talk about election protection. Let's run through, Lulu, if you got a minute. Let me run through the
Go
people.
real quick. We have Steve and Mimi both have their hands up. Is this?
Yes, and Daniela. Daniela, go. Myla was first, then Daniela, then Mimi and Steve, please. And then we'll go to
going now?
Lulu's going to give us the rundown on a big fight.
Yes,
Lulu's
Daniela.
one of the great election protection activist in this country, and we're honored to have her. Myla, go ahead, please. Daniela, Mimi.
Thank you. You know, Harvey, we talk about the Democrats who are pushing nuclear power, and I always like to remind people that it's not only Democratic. I'm sorry, there's a lot of feedback coming through right now. Anyway, years ago, Democratic Senator Daniel Inouye from Hawaii proposed that a nuclear power plant be built on the Big Island of Hawaii, and then that an underground cable be constructed to transport that electricity to the island of Oahu. And luckily that was shut down, but we still have senators in Hawaii, Mr. Schatz, Brian Schatz, who still is an advocate for nuclear power. And in Arizona, we have 2 senators who are proponents of nuclear power. So it's not just the governors. And I just wanted to say, years ago, there was this wonderful program experiment that was enacted under the presidency of Jimmy Carter, where they were experimenting by pushing warm water down into the ocean and bringing cold water up to see if they could generate electricity, and it was very successful. And they managed to. They shut it down. It was discontinued when Carter was no longer president. So,
All right.
just wanted to add that. And
Well, thank you.
just one more thing, and that is last night in Los Angeles at the kerfuffle that was occurring, there were 3 Waymo self-driving cars that are lithium battery propelled, and they were set on fire. So there were big lithium fires in the middle of all
Yeah.
demonstrations last night.
I
Okay.
don't like that. That's not good.
Okay.
But thank you for that, Myla. Appreciate that. Daniela, Mimi, and then we're going to go to Lulu, who's going to talk about election protection. Daniela, please, and then Mimi, and then
Yes.
Lulu.
I want to say something negative first. We have to be very careful of page 153 in the big, bad, ugly, so-called beautiful bill. It will destroy the court's abilities to order contempt of court, to decide contempt of court. And most people aren't even noticing that page 153 in the big, bad, ugly bill says that.
Okay.
Number 2, I want to mention something positive. Harvey, you and I remember how we worked so hard to keep Governor's Island from becoming a nuclear base in the middle of
Yes.
New York Harbor, and we won. And
We
it
did
is
win.
now a playground. And number 2, we fought for years to shut down Indian Point, and we finally won
And
that.
we did.
too.
Absolutely.
So keep
Thank
your
you for
hope,
that.
as Jesse Jackson used to say, keep hope alive. Keep making your calls, writing your letters, getting out on No King's Day next Saturday. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, no King's Day. Good for you. Thank you so much, Daniela. Mimi, and then we're going to go to Lulu. Mimi, quickly, please, and then Lulu.
Yeah, Sluggo, I just feel like people like you have to go to these governors and, a little coalition on the side, because we don't have like any lobbyists who are really out there. And I'm sure that all these governors who we were just talking about, these Democratic governors, are getting paid by lobbyists for their vote. I don't know if they are, but I'm guessing they are, because why the hell else would they do that, So I'm just suggesting you and Linda Gunner and like all these different people get together and petition them for their ear so that they can hear what's really going on. That's all.
Right. Well, we did in Ohio get the ear of Governor Dick Celeste. He did go to federal court to challenge the evacuation at the Perry reactors, and he lost in federal court. He did his best. On the other hand, we now have Gavin Newsom, who's going to be a big hero in California for standing up to Trump, who's totally stabbed us in the back on nuclear power. We're going to come to that again in the second hour. Lynn, I know you got your hand, but Lulu is first. And Lulu, we're very glad to have you with us. Lulu is one of the great activists here on election protection. And you've won a big victory, I believe, in New York State. Lulu, can you talk about that for us? And let's go deeper into protecting the elections. We got 131 people with us, and you are up. Lulu Friesdat, please.
Thanks so much, Harvey. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's really amazing. And I know you've been at this a long time, but you're still
Well, I will
still
be 80 on New Year's Eve, so everybody can go
amazing.
celebrate my 80th birthday, please. Go ahead.
Congratulations on your
Okay.
upcoming birthday and your longevity and your strength and resilience and all that you've done. So congratulations to you. And thank you so much for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be here and I really appreciate it. I'm very grateful. So let me get into it. I think a lot of people here may not know me. My name is Lulu Friesdat, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Smart Elections. You can find us at smartelections.us. And Steve, maybe you could put that into the chat if you don't mind. And I'm just going to I'm going to try to keep it really tight. Harvey asked that I just talk maybe for 5 minutes. It's 5:40 now, so maybe I'll try to talk for 5 minutes and then take 10 minutes worth of questions. And I would like to be as clear as possible about the facts of this lawsuit that we filed. There's a fair amount of misinformation just zinging all over the internet, so don't necessarily believe everything that you read. Try to go to our website, smartelections.us, and look at the documents there. That's how you're going to know what the facts are. The facts themselves are quite remarkable and really don't need exaggerating. So I've been working in election protection for around 20 years. I released a documentary in 2008 where I explored why more people don't vote and participate in politics. And as part of that, we researched different reasons why people don't participate. And one of the things that came up on a regular basis was that people didn't believe the election results were accurate. And so we tried to investigate that. Each part of the film, we would spend a segment asking people why they didn't vote, and then we would go and research if there was validity to that. And it turned out there was a good deal of validity in the possibility that the results weren't being counted correctly. So in 2007, in the process of making the film, I went and interviewed Alex Halderman, who many people know because now he's a world famous white hat hacker and a professor at the University of Michigan. But at the time, he was a grad student and he was a grad student at Princeton, and I filmed the first known hack of a US voting machine. And it really did blow my mind. We voted for certain candidates, and then Alex and his partners printed out the results, and they were different. They were different people than the ones that we had voted for. And I went, oh, that would change everything. And so since that time, I've really devoted my work to trying to explore if this is a possibility and whether or not whether or not it's something that we could prove. So Steve's showing you our Substack there. This was a Substack that we did about Pro-V&V, which is a testing lab. I don't want to get into the testing lab just now, Steve. I'm going to start with the lawsuit because it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So is it okay if I go ahead and share my screen? I put together a PDF that I think will help people. They give you just some grounding. So the first thing I would recommend that you do to find out about the lawsuit is to read the press release. And the press release was on the AP, and I'll go ahead and I'll put that link into the chat. So the press release has the basic facts, which can guide you. And the basic facts are that in Rockland County, New York, we have challenged the results of both the 2024 presidential and the 2024 US Senate race. And we did that because we have a fair amount of evidence. There is evidence that the Senate race is incorrect, and there are strong statistical indications that the presidential race is incorrect. But a lot of people are conflating those two when they're talking about it. So I want to be really clear. In the Senate race, we challenged the results of the Senate because we got evidence from this independent candidate. Her name is Diane Sayre. And Diane Sayre collected affidavits greater than the number of votes that were recorded for her by the Board of Elections. And it might seem like a small number that it's off, but it's actually about 50% in the two districts that she checked. And 50%, if you aggregate that out across the county, would be a tremendous number of votes. It's very, very serious that they counted her votes incorrectly. So she had affidavits basically totaling 9 people voting for her in this one particular district. This is District 62. They said she had, I think it looks like they said she had, oh, this is the first one. 62, she had 5, and they said she had 3. And then in another district, she had collected affidavits which would indicate that she had 9 votes, and the board said that she had 5. So both times it was about 50%. But keep in mind, that's the Senate race. That's the Senate race where we have physical evidence that the results are incorrect. In addition to that, there's strong statistical indications that the presidential results are incorrect. And those indications come from 2 different areas. One are these districts where, even though there were a large number of Democratic Senate votes, there were either 0 or a very small number of Harris votes. That's unusual. And you can see this is not just in one district. Ramapo 35 is there with 0 votes for Harris, even though Kirsten Gillibrand, the Democratic senator, got 331. And then Ramapo 55, similar, but almost more extreme. Kirsten Gillibrand, the Democratic senator, got 909 votes, and Kamala Harris got 2. And there
Oh my God. Well, okay, Lulu, can you back up 1 second? Are you saying there's this one place where Kamala Harris got 0 votes?
There's actually multiple districts. I believe that there's 5 districts where she got 0 votes.
So
now,
Trump got 552 and Kamala Harris got 0?
Yeah, it's
You
unusual.
gotta be kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. So this is one of the reasons that we filed the lawsuit. Now, there are unusual circumstances in Ramapo. There is a large Hasidic population in Ramapo. Some of the districts are almost 100% Hasidic. And what we understand is that the population there votes not based on party, but based on the suggestion of the rabbi. And so it is not that unusual that the rabbi says to them, I want you to vote for Trump for president. I want you to vote for Gillibrand for senator, and that they might do that. But 100% compliance is a little hard to believe. And then we actually did some research on this. Like, we looked at this article, which was a 2022 article, and they talked about the Hasidic population. It is known that they vote what's called en bloc as one unit, but they also had a leader there who said, there are thousands of other Hasidics and Orthodox voters in Rockland with varying degrees of fidelity to the political endorsements of community leaders. In other words, some people follow the advice and some people don't. So again, it is a little implausible that you have these districts with 0 votes for Harris and a strong Democratic senator vote.
I would just have to say it's more than a little implausible. I mean, that's staggering. The idea that a presidential candidate where there were almost 500 votes counted, is that what it was? And that she would get 0?
0, yeah, more than one district. I think 5 districts where that's the case. And then other districts where she got very little, 2, 3 votes. So then I want to just, before we take questions, I want to also let people know that, and I think I have this in the, let me just see if I can get this out of edit. Yeah, this looks a little bit better. So it is not just that town of Ramapo with the strong Hasidic population where we have unusual statistical analysis. There are 4 other towns in Rockland County, and the other 4 towns really have no strong Hasidic presence. The Hasidic presence is all in Ramapo, but we had a statistician do a statistical analysis of the 4 other towns, and they are quite strange. And this is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify it for you as best I can. In these towns, we compared the 2024 results with the 2020 results. And what we found is an extreme unlikelihood of the 2024 results. Harris was always performing below the Senate, the Democratic Senate candidate on average, when in 2020, Biden and Trump had always been above the senator, or in 2020, it was the Congress. But this is so unlikely. It is represented by what's called this p-value of 0. And for people who don't know p-value is the probability, and the lower the p-value, the less likely, the less probable it is. And these 4 towns all had a p-value of 0 likelihood that they are correct or organic when we compared them to 2020 election results. And these are all Clarkstown, Haverstraw, all p-value of 0, Orangetown, Stony Point, all p-value of 0, comparing 2024 to 2020. So that is a statistically unusual analysis there. It is statistically significant, and it is another reason why we believe the judge actually said that we have permission to go forward with a full hand recount of the presidential and the Senate results. And then just before I go, the one thing that I just really do want to emphasize, that the one way you could really, really help us is to donate. And I'm sorry, I know it's always back to money, but we have to pay our attorney, and it's very expensive. We're going to have the opportunity to do depositions and find out a lot of information about what happened in this county, which could also give us information about other counties all over the country. What happened? Like, what was their security like? What was their network connection to the internet? What types of security protocols did they have in this county? And it will help us understand other counties. And this is a rare opportunity that the judge has said we can move forward with discovery, very rare. And we need to raise $100,000 in the next 4 months, which is basically $1,000 a day. We have raised over 26,000 so far in 1 week. And I do beg of you that you go to smartelections.us and make a donation, whatever you can. We're very, very grateful. And I will put the link to our donation in the chat. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's go back. Thank you for that, Lulu, and you are a great expert in all this. Here's a question I have, and I'm sorry, and then we'll go to Lynn and John Steiner. One of the things that we see happening, and we've had Greg Palast on to talk about this, and others, is the disqualification apparatus is going to be kicking in. You know, people are assuming that there'll be a big slide for away from Trump in 26. But one campaign, and I don't know if you've seen this, will be to disenfranchise women. And the way they'll do it is to demand identification for a name that many women will not be able to come up with if they've changed their names from when they got married. And so their birth certificate will not match their married name. Many women do not have their marriage certificate. And are you anticipating any kind of action like that in the 26 election?
So I think that it's pretty clearly established that the Republicans will attempt voter suppression wherever, whenever, however they can. So I think the voter suppression is a very serious issue. We are not specifically working on voter suppression because we think it is an equally serious issue if the voting results themselves, the results of people who do actually cast a vote, are being altered. So they're kind of separate but equally serious issues. What we do, we have an election protection program, and we are training people to observe, to do what's called nonpartisan election observation. And we are rolling that out across the entire country. And we teach people how to compare the number of voters who vote with the number of ballots scanned and various other data to collect data. You get a certificate that allows you to collect data at the polling location. And if somebody wants to sign up to do that election protection, we would like to train you. And we would love to get you active, if you're not already active, in your local election community, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Okay, thank you for that. I just got a text, by the way, and we're going to be discussing this in the second hour, that the Marines at Camp Pendleton have been mobilized to go into Los Angeles. So, small detail there. We will talk about this in the second hour. Go ahead, Lynn Feinerman. And thank you again, Lulu. This is great stuff. Lynn Feinerman and John Steiner was with us, and then Darlene Little. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Lulu. That is really important to me in particular, because I think that it's pretty clear that the 2024 election was stolen and was fixed. And I think Musk was the fixer. But in any case, this has probably been dwelt on already, and I came late, but I took out a couple hours of my day sometime last week, and I called 10 Republican senators, and I either talked to their assistants, or I talked to their machine at length about the problem with the courts and the overriding of the court system. About a day and a half later, there was a Yahoo article, of all places, stating that many Republican senators didn't know that that court override was in this bill. You know, you can believe that or not believe that, but what I'm trying to get at is I think it's really important that we do that activism, that all of us, you know, there's 123 people right now on this Zoom. If we all called 10 Republican senators who might change, like Jerry Moran or Lisa Murkowski or whomever, it would be really, really important, and it would move them, because they did come out and say, you know, we didn't know Sieg ut, but you know, they actually noticed something, maybe not directly from my calls, but you know, I'm just asking people, I'm urging people to take a couple hours out and, you know, compose what you have to say about the whole situation with the overriding of the courts in this ugly, ugly bill, and do it as soon as you can, so that Republicans understand that people are not looking away. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lynn, I think we need to call Democrats as well. We can't rely on them, as you know, and I'm glad you made the calls. Thank you very much. Lulu, did you want to comment on that? And then we'll go to Darlene Little.
I think it's a beautiful thing that she called those senators. Anytime that you're actually reaching out and having human to human contact with our representatives, I think that that's a beautiful thing. That's how it's supposed to work. And it's so rare for people to call across the aisle. So that's amazing that you did that. And I absolutely encourage people to do it if they've actually read the bill or read the segment of the bill that they're talking about, and they understand the bill. And, you know, it's a very long, complicated bill. I myself have not had time to read the whole thing. So if you actually have time to read at least a section and talk knowledgeably about that section, I think that's a wonderful thing to do. I do want to just address a question that came into the chat, and it said from Stephanie Newton, Lulu, has the judge in the New York lawsuit already ruled that a recount can happen? I've seen a lot of people posting this, and I didn't think that was correct. I thought the case was still in the discovery phase, and the ruling would be on or after September 22nd. So both of those things are true. The judge actually did rule that the recount can go forward. It was remarkable. And I think part of it was because of the physical evidence of the Diane Sayre case in the Senate race. We put in what's called a petition. We asked for a number of things. She denied most of the things that we asked for, but she said, except for the recount, we'll move forward. And she set the date of a hearing. So basically, the judge is on record as saying the recount is moving forward, but the sort of caveat to that is that the defense, the opposing counsel, has the opportunity to try to dismiss the suit, and believe me, they are trying. So if they can dismiss the suit, then we won't get the recount. And we did make some technical errors that our lawyer is trying to sort out for us. So because we didn't really have any money initially, and we filed pro se, but the errors that we made are pretty minor, and hopefully we will still be standing after they make their motion to dismiss, in which case the recount will go forward, because the judge did order the recount to go forward. If, you know, and if nothing prevents that, then that is the natural course of events. But she did say that even while they are writing and putting in their motion to dismiss, discovery is moving forward. So that's a remarkable opportunity for us. And we are asking for things that, as I said, give us information about the protocols here, but the protocols here are probably used all over the country. The ES&S equipment that's being used in this county is used all over the country. So this is a huge, huge opportunity for us to find out about how these elections work in a way that we do not normally get to see. And again, I'm just going to say, please do donate to help us get that information.
And I will point out, in 2016, Jill Stein went into Michigan and won a decision from a judge to hold a recount in Michigan, which could have significantly changed the outcome in 2016. And Hillary Clinton declined to do the recount in Michigan. So I'm glad, Lulu, that you're proceeding. And, you know, we do need these recounts. Darlene Little, and then Julie Weiner, who's in New York. Darlene, go ahead.
Thank you, guys. I'm so thankful that Lulu and her Smart Elections is doing this, and if we can donate to her, that would also be a big plug. I have a small question. If the sophistication of compromising or changing the election results is so ingrained in the efforts of the people that were doing this, what's to say that the count of paper ballots is going to be any different? I would suspect that they would go in and alter the paper ballots to correspond with the results that they're happy with. And I don't know how that affects the depositions or the declarations that other people have made in contrast to that. But I think we're up against people who are sophisticated enough to thwart any efforts. I just like to hear your comments about. Thank you so much, Lulu. I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you for that comment, Darlene. It's very astute. So we agree with you. It's been 6 months, and it's been plenty of time for them to cover their tracks if in fact they were aware of what happened and were involved in any way, if it was some sort of insider rigging. There's a couple possibilities here. One is that it's not an inside rig, it's an outside rig, and they were completely unaware, in which case we might actually find something if we count the paper ballots. Number two, we're going to be asking them for a lot of chain of custody information, which is to say they are going to need to prove to us that their ballots have not been tampered in any way. Did they have seals on all the ballot boxes? Did they have sealed logs? And were those logs checked? Did people sign off on them every time the ballots changed hands? And what about those seals? Were they kept in careful security protocols so that nobody could get access to them and change the seals without somebody knowing? So these are all questions that we're putting to them in discovery. And if they cannot adequately prove that they had good chain of custody, then as you said, there is no reason to believe that the paper ballots will tell us anything. But it's still worthwhile to count them. And I do want to just circle back to something that I think Harvey was talking about how Clinton didn't participate in the Jill Stein recount. And there's a very similar situation that unfolded in 2024 in regard to the Democrats. And we actually have a Substack post that's coming out either later today or tomorrow with inside information about what was going on inside the Democratic Party as they were sorting out whether or not to challenge this election. Fascinating. And to me, just mind-boggling. So I'm going to put my Substack in the chat, and I do encourage you to check it, to subscribe. We are going to have some pretty interesting information, as I said, within the next 24 hours. Julie, hi.
Hi, Lulu. Thank you.
It's really, we need to have this go forward because it's going to have to be done in 26. Again, people continue to think that it's an automatic that the Democrats are we're going to have big victories against Trump in 26. Not a given. And this kind of inspection of the balloting procedure really needs to become generic. Okay, very quickly. Okay, Julie, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Lulu, thank you for all the hard work you did to gather the documentation that there were people who voted differently from the way the way the numbers came out. And many of us got involved in this after seeing the 2000, 2004 elections, and then the brilliant statistical analysis that was done of the Massachusetts elections in 2010 that showed that the districts that still were hand marking paper ballots, as opposed that were hand counting the paper ballots, went for the Democrat when the Republicans replaced the governor. But anyway, so we'll have a new batch of statistical evidence that'll be publicly available if you get to have discovery. And it is amazing and awesome that you persuaded the judge to let this go as far as it has. It really is evidence of how bad the situation was.
Well, also
Anyway,
just to jump in, it gives us important legal precedent.
Right.
In other places.
Yeah, the fact that discovery is even being allowed, it's on this recount vote. So it is important. And
Meanwhile, the zone is getting flooded. We've all got so many issues that we're trying to stick our fingers in the dike to stop the floods from overwhelming us. But I do still want to ask for help in our legislative agenda for New York State. We are still trying to prevent the deployment of the Express Vote Excel, the barcode voting machines that ES&S is trying to replace hand-marked paper ballots with. And we have
Julie,
Yes.
we're getting up to our second hour and we're trying
Okay,
to get
yeah.
into the
All right,
environmental
well,
program.
I put it in the chat, the bill. we
Well, let
want
me
people to
finish,
call-
please. Julie, we'd love you to come back and do a deep dive on what you're
Well,
doing because
next,
it's
the
super important.
the reason I'm here today is because the legislative session ends on Thursday, so
Oh,
I
okay. Well,
put the
then
phone number of Carl Hasty, our speaker, in the chat at minute 5:59. The bill is Viva NY A6287. It's got to go on the Rules Committee agenda or it's not going to get passed. If it doesn't get passed, there are a number of counties that are ready to buy, that are buying the Express Vote Excel. If we don't pass Viva NY, the only finger left in the dike is the Common Cause lawsuit. So if people can help, if you're in New York or even if you're not in New York, Carl Hasty's phone number is on the is in the chat,
Okay.
and you can look it up. And his
I put it back in there.
okay, ask for his legislative aide, Jennifer
518
Best. Yeah,
455 3791.
thanks very much.
I'm gonna
Thanks, Julie.
second Julie's request there and just try to give a little bit of background on why that's so important. So the voting machines that are coming into New York State are a voting machine that is basically designed to cheat. It's as though ES&S thought to itself, went back to its developers and said, they're still kind of catching us sometimes when we're cheating. How could we figure out a machine that would be really, really hard to catch when we were cheating? And they said, okay, well, let's start with a voting machine that has a blank ballot. So there's no pre-printed ballots. So the voters just put a blank sheet of paper in, and then let's have the computer print all of the votes. And then let's make sure that whatever we show the voter isn't actually what we count. We're going to count a barcode instead, which we could program however we want. And that would just be impossible to catch us cheating. And this is just my, idea of what might have happened. I'm not saying this is what happened, but I'm saying this is the machine that they came up with. You could literally have designed it that way. And so it's this voting machine where everybody has to vote with a touch screen, and the machine counts the votes on the barcodes and not what it shows you. And it's just a machine designed to cheat. And it is flooding New York State. County after county is starting to buy it now. And you might think New York, whatever, New York's not a swing state. Let me tell you, New York is a swing state. In the midterms, New York is probably going to control the balance of power in Congress because there are 6, count them 6, swing counties in New York with congressional races that could go either way. And one of the counties that actually has 2 congressional races that are swing is in the process of buying these friggin' voting machines that make it, hard to catch you cheating. It's called the Express Vote Excel. So honestly, we talked about how important it is to call people, whether you live in New York or not. The congressional races are going to impact you. And if you have 2 minutes to call Carl Hasty and say, please, please, please pass this bill. It's called Viva New York, and the number is A6287. We would beg you to make a call. Literally, it would take you 2 minutes. And the session ends Thursday. So this is our last Hail Mary that we've got going here.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you both. Ruth Strauss,
Thank
Donald
you.
Smith, and then we're going to move on, but this has been a great session. I will point out, by the way, the idea in a Hasidic district that one woman would get 0 votes and another woman would get X number doesn't compute if both women are shiksas. And those of you who know what I just said will know. But there's no reason that a Hasidic vote should go 100% one way and not another if neither of the women are Jewish. So go ahead, Ruth Strauss, and then Donald Smith.
Just a prefatory remark, Harvey, as Mike Myers would say, when you revealed that you're going to be 80, you look marvelous, simply marvelous. And
Thank
it's
you.
totally unbelievable. And you're really must have been at De Ponce's Fountain of Youth. Anyway, Darlene Little, I haven't thought about her in a long time, but she is the reason that I know about the voting machines in Los Angeles. We have a totally corrupt guy who's the county registrar, and he spent, I believe, like $300 million on getting us all new voting machines here. And I know Lulu is the queen of voting machine cracking. But anyway, the bottom line is that Darlene got a hold of a technical report about these machines, that the touchscreen machines that this guy had put everywhere in Los Angeles. And the technical report showed that there were, quote unquote, 43 fails, security fails. 7 of them were critical. And they were things like you could open the back of the machine and either put things in or put things out. Everybody knows this kind of thing. The fact that there was no log of how many times the machines were opened and closed, poor security locks, etc. And this was like for the entire county of Los Angeles, which obviously has a great deal to do with our local and state as well as federal. So I'm just pointing out that, when people, and Lulu's been a champion of finding out about these bad machines, but it's kind of like the saying, it's worse than you think. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah. I
Thanks
just
for
want
that,
to point
Ruth.
out in passing, by the way, there are more voters in Los Angeles County than there are in New Jersey. So just to give you some perspective, Donald Smith, and then Mike, and then we'll move on. But this has been a great session, and we want to have you back. We need to do a deeper dive on what the likelihood is that the 2026 election will not be kosher. So go
I
ahead,
will.
Donald.
I'd love to, just because Steve had put up this pro-VMV website previously, and this is probably a good moment to just throw this in, because this is circulating again around the internet. Another person has a Substack, and they took our Substack and they kind of added some fictional information to it. So I just want to be clear about what we put up that we know is factual about this testing lab. So as Ruth said, many of the voting machines have serious security vulnerabilities. The ones she's talking about in LA have a lot of similarities to the ones we're fighting in New York, and they have a lot of security issues. But in addition to that, all of the voting machines have to get tested. And there's actually only 2 testing labs at the federal level that are certified to approve the voting machines for use around the country. And one of them is this lab called pro-VNV. And one of the things that I reported on back in February was that this testing lab, that is one of only 2 testing labs that approves voting machines across the entire country, had been basically, its website had been disintegrating for about 6 months. I went back on the Internet Archive, and many of the times its front page looked like this: "Hello world, welcome to WordPress. This is your first post." This was the front page of pro-VNV, the lab testing site for most of our voting equipment. And in addition to that, we went back and we tracked all of the software updates that they had done. And they had done 4 software updates in the course of 2024, prior to the 2024 election. And those software updates did affect many of the voting machines across the country. There were 2 software updates. There were software and firmware for multiple versions of Dominion, and then for multiple versions of ES&S, and then again, so those were in March and April of 2024, and then September, more software updates for ES&S and another one for Dominion. So these were multiple software updates from a company that seemed to be really disintegrating, or possibly like their website had been hacked. It was just very unclear what was happening. We did get an email from them saying that their website was just in the process of being updated. And in fact, they did get it updated. So like if you go to pro-VMV now, it doesn't look like that anymore. ProVMV.com, it looks like a normal testing lab website. But it didn't look like this for 6 months in 2024, on and off. It looked just bizarre. And
Well,
so it's
at
unnerving.
an upcoming session, Lulu, we're going to do another deep dive. I'm going to see if I can get Greg to join us, Greg Palast. And we really need to do a precursor to the 2026 election so that we have a fighting chance at any rate. Do you want to add to that? And
I totally agree with you. We absolutely need to protect the 2026 election. I did put in the chat how to sign up for our election protection teams, and those would be local. You'd be working in your local county. So please do sign up. And Howard, just let me make one clarification about that pro VNV. One of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is because there is this other blog post that's circulating around that went further than what the facts are. It said that we know that the machines were planted with malware. We don't know that. We don't know what they were planted with. So just please be wary of what you read and what you pass around, and just stick to the facts. I want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald Smith, Mickey Leader, and then Mike Hirsch. And Julie will give another minute, but then we want to move on. Go ahead, Donald.
And our next guest is ready and waiting.
Yeah, Kaylee Underhill. And we do want to get to her before we go into the deepening disaster in Los Angeles here. Still have 112 people with us, so let's rock and roll. Donald, go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Friesdat, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Okay, so New York State, their governor is Democratic, and it's mostly a Democratic state. So you'd think that voting would be mostly fair there. It's very disconcerting that even in New York State, Republicans seemingly apparently have hacked it. What about in Ohio or Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, Republican states? It's probably even worse. And do they even keep paper ballots? And there's probably no way to track it if it's just electronic. So
well, Donald, we're going to go deep into this in the next week or two. I'll get Greg with us. Lulu will come back, hopefully. Julie and we will do deeper. But let's put it this way: you can't even begin to know what's going on. And don't even get me going about Ohio, which Steve Caruso knows about. So we will dig deeper in this, and we'll get a special session to go when we can get Greg and other folks, okay? Thank you for that. Mickey, then Julie, and then we're going to rock and roll. Mickey Leader, and then Julie Weiner again. Trying to unmute you, Mickey. And then we can go to Kaylee. Okay, Julie, you're unmuted while we go ahead.
Okay, sure. I just wanted to repeat, Carl.
Okay, there's Mickey. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Julie.
Okay, hi. On the good side, I met somebody at my doctor's office this afternoon who was signing up. Both of us went to the knee surgeon, and that's why I missed your first part. And she's signing up to do everything she can with PDA. On the ultra side, I am terrified that he is going to declare martial law for the whole United States and
stay with us, Mickey. Stay with us. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes.
Okay,
raise that again.
All right,
okay?
now I'm not doing. No, that's
Mickey. Is that all right?
She's off.
Oh, all right, go ahead, Julie. We'll come back.
I just want to repeat Carl Hastie's phone number if you want to take this one small, very important action. 518-455-3791. And the bill that we want him to put on the Rules Committee is Viva NY A6287. Please take that very urgent action. We only have the legislative session closes Thursday until January.
Okay, thank you both. Lulu, this was great. So glad to have you with us. Julie, you guys are in New York, and there's so much we need to do. Mickey, if you'll come back to us in a few minutes, we are going to talk about the burning of the Reichstag here in Los Angeles. Again, Lou, nobody should be taking for granted what's going to happen in 2026. You know, they've got all the money in the world. Lulu and Julie know very well the mechanics of voting, as we've seen in so many other places. The Democrats have, there's one consistent thing that the Democratic Party has done with election protection in this century, which is nothing. And, you know, we have never been able to count on the Democrats to guard the ballot. And we will talk about 2000 in Florida, 2004 in Ohio, 2016 in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and 2024 all across the map. So we will come back and visit again. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you, Julie. and we will see you soon. I'll be back in touch with you.
Thank you, Harvey.
Okay, we're going to go now to Kaylee Underhill, talk about the solar disaster in California, and then we were going to deal, Mickey Leader, I hope you're back with us. We're going to deal with the burning of the Reichstag here in LA. Kaylee, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Harvey and MYLA, for having me on. Sounds like there is quite a range of topics that are being discussed today, and I'm not sure there's any particularly good transition to this one. So I'll just be succinct and happy to answer any questions that folks have, and then let everyone move to the next topic on the agenda. It sounds like there is a lot. So for anyone who doesn't know me yet, my name is Kaylee Underhill. I'm the Advocacy and Development Director with the Solar Rights Alliance. For context, there are 2 million rooftop solar users in California. And right now there is a bill authored by a former SoCal Edison executive that would break those 2 million
Who's a
rooftop solar
Democrat, by the way.
contracts.
The one who introduced this horrible bill is a Democrat.
Right. So the bill has been introduced by Assemblymember Lisa Calderon, who was an Edison executive for 25 years and has taken $190,000 from the monopoly utilities and campaign contributions. So this bill is a very clear attempt to attack consumers in order to enrich her former employer, SoCal Edison. And the bill squeaked through the assembly. Bill only needs 41 votes to pass in the California Assembly. It got 46, five votes. It was very nearly stopped in the Assembly. It has been weakened twice, but it is still a very bad bill that would in no uncertain terms break 2 million legal contracts. And I think everyone here understands the implication of breaking contracts here and elsewhere. So we have 3 more opportunities, at least, hopefully, to stop this bill in the state Senate. I know there's a lot of conversation, and I'm hearing some of it here today about the federal Senate, but in the case of this bill, we're talking about the state Senate. If you have a moment, it would be wonderful if you could call your state senator today and ask them to vote no on AB 942 as amended. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the impact of this bill, but I did want to keep it short and sweet as I'm not sure where we are in terms of time.
Okay, Steve, if you'll put up the number AD 942, Kaylee, please correct me. The bill would break the legal requirement of the state to deal with the amount of money that people who put rooftop solar on their homes or their buildings would reap. And can you explain very quickly the detail? But it's a complete breach of contract. I can't believe it's even legal. And it's, the Democrats and, of course, Gavin Newsom are supporting it. It's a handout to the utilities. It's a kick in the teeth to the solar industry in California. Can you give us the detail real quick?
Yes, I certainly can. And I will say it is all of those things, but what the bill does is a little different than what you're describing. So give me like 60 seconds to explain.
Yeah, please.
So when someone goes solar, they sign something called the interconnection agreement. And actually, sorry, if we could take the screen sharing down for a moment, we can certainly come back to the roll call, but just so folks can see what I'm showing you here. This is the actual contract. The utilities have been trying to say that there is no contract. This is it. I'm holding it in my hot little hands. You too can print this off and see this thing. So it is a real contract. And it says in no uncertain terms that when someone goes solar, they get to be on the state's solar program for 20 years. And a piece of the terms and conditions says very, very clearly that that 20-year period, that 20-year lock-in period lasts even if a home is sold. It is in black and white ink that they are eligible for the 20-year period, even if the home is transferred to a new owner, operator, or account. This is the one for SoCal Edison, but they're the same in all 3 monopoly utility territories. So very clearly, you get 20 years on the state's solar program. What this bill would do is break this contract when the home is sold. There are 2 problems with that. Number 1, it unequivocally breaks the contract. And that is not something we should be doing on any topic, anywhere, in any state. This happens to be a problem right now in California with this particular bill, that we should not be breaking contracts. This is a legally binding contract. Those words are even in the PG&E version of this. This is a legally binding contract. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, Harvey, gets at what you were saying, which is that most people who went solar in California took out a loan or a lease to be able to do that, because most people who went solar in California are middle income working class individuals. 60% of rooftop solar users are middle and working class folks. So they took out a loan or a lease. If they go to sell their home and their contract is broken at the point of sale, that system will have significantly less value to the new buyer. And as a result, those loans and leases will be underwater when that home is sold. And that means that those folks will have to buy out their loan or lease in order to sell their home, losing tens of thousands of dollars in the process. So this is a huge consumer rights issue. To your point, Harvey, we don't think that it's legal. There is a legal team that has looked at this bill and put out a legal memo, which is available for public consumption. And I can share all this stuff in the chat that explains why they think this bill is not legal. But it doesn't have a legal challenge to it yet, because the fastest and most efficient way to stop this thing is before it becomes a law by asking the California State Senate to vote no, which is what they should do in no uncertain terms. And as I said, the bill has been weakened twice, but this is still what the impact of the bill would be. It is still very, very bad. And yes, this is one link. I will also share another link with the folks so that people have it. This is our website. It's just solarrights.org. And you can learn all about us and all about what we do. And I'll dump some stuff in the chat in a minute so everybody has everything all in one spot from me. But I hope that answers your question, Harvey. And I'm happy to take questions from other folks as well. Thank you. I see things happening in the chat.
No, you're doing great. And I want to point out this is yet another betrayal from our Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, who is about to be made into a great hero by Donald Trump, but he has stabbed us on the back on so many issues. This is absolutely outrageous. I mean,
yes,
you put solar panels on your roof, you sign contracts, they're supposed to be binding contracts. This is not inconsequential stuff. And the assembly, to serve the interests not only of the three of SoCal Ed, PG&E, and San Diego Gas and Electric, but also the DWP, and you know, and they are just telling people who put solar panels on their roof to drop dead. That what we signed for you is we're just going to break the contract. Goodbye.
Well, they're telling every Californian that they're fine with breaking 2 million contracts. Contracts, folks. These are legally binding contracts. This is totally unacceptable. And Harvey, to your point, it's not just saying that this is coming from Newsom. Newsom actually put forward an executive order proposal that resulted in this bill actualizing part of his proposal. So this is absolutely coming from that direction. And then it was Assemblymember Lisa Calderon who actualized this piece. And again, she worked for Edison for 25 years and has taken tens of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from the monopoly utilities. Yes, those angry faces I'm seeing.
And I will point out that Newsom has done everything in his power to kill renewable energy in California. I mean, Donald Trump could not have done more damage in California as governor than Gavin Newsom has done. At the same time, prolonging the operation at Diablo Canyon, which was supposed to have shut last year and which still has no insurance and surrounded by earthquake faults and tsunami zones. Am I overstating the case, Kaylee?
I mean, the reason that I got into this, the reason that I am a big fan of rooftop solar, even though I don't have it myself, is that I think it's the closest thing that we have to a silver bullet to address our affordability needs, our electricity needs, and to create a resilient, good grid that works for everybody. I mean, think about it, folks. We need way, way, way more electricity than we currently have, even just to meet our EV and electrification demands, let alone what's clearly coming down the pike with AI. And we will not meet those needs unless we can get rooftop solar growing again. So every bill like this that undermines rooftop solar is putting us further and further away from the state meeting the needs of everybody who lives here through rooftop solar, which, by the way, more than a dozen expert energy economists agree that rooftop solar saved everyone in California $1.5 billion last year, even if you don't have it on your roof. So when I drive down the street and I see solar, even though I don't have it, I'm psyched about it because I know it's helping keep my electricity bills less expensive because it's removing stress and strain on the grid and saving the utilities from having to build expensive stuff that we all then pay for.
And I should point out that Paul Newman is our great hero. He has solar on his roof. I signed a contract to put a solar on my roof 6 months ago, and the company I signed with, because of Gavin Newsom, went bankrupt. So there you go. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Mike Hurst, Steve Caruso, anybody else want to jump in? And then we're going to start talking about the martial law in LA. Mike and Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, really
Gail, you're
quickly.
great, by the way.
Yeah, rooftop solar is a silver bullet. It's, if not a golden bullet, it's just absolutely wonderful. And the great thing about it is rooftop solar will help keep homes cool in the hot, hot sun, turn that heat into power, and then you don't have to tear down forests or destroy wilderness for gigantic solar farms and then run gigantic cables from the distant area. So rooftop solar is the way to go forward. The power companies understand this, and that's why they're trying to undermine it and make it financially impossible to do, even though there are probably workarounds for that because it's such a great deal for the consumers. So
Totally.
they're not going to be able to kill rooftop solar no matter how hard they try. The fact that they are trying shows that they are in cahoots with these power companies, either for campaign donations or they have stock options or whatever it is. And I just want to close by saying that people are talking about these terrible Democrats that are doing horrible things in New York, and terrible Democrats are doing terrible things in California. Keep in mind, there are Democrats and then there are Democrats. Some Democrats are really Republicans who are smart enough to realize that they ain't going to get elected with an R next to their name. So lifelong Republicans, like the guy who ran against Karen Bass for mayor of LA, he was a real estate developer, lifelong Republican, gave money to Trump, totally in that, decides, well, a Republican's not going to win in LA, so I'll just pretend I'm a Democrat. And he came pretty close to winning. So you got to be really, really judicious when it comes to the primaries and get involved very early on and find out and ask the hard questions like Sluggo and MYLA do. If they support nukes, then they don't get environmentalist supports. If they oppose solar, then they don't get the support. But unfortunately, a lot of these mainstream media, newspapers and TV stations are bought out by the same corporations that own the politicians. So they're not going to tell you the truth. You got to get out. And thank you so much, Kaylee, for getting the word out. You're doing a great job.
You. Yes, indeed.
Thank you,
Steve,
Mike. And
Go
sorry,
ahead.
but before we move, I do just want to connect the dots about what Mike said, because I think it's important, and I worry folks might not quite understand the connection there. Is that okay, Harvey? Just quickly.
Please. Mhm.
Okay, so Mike, first of all, thank you. I love your gold bullet phrase. That was great. Two important things. One, I want to make sure folks understand how the monopoly utilities in California make their profits. So in California, the monopoly utilities get a guaranteed rate of return for every pole, wire, and piece of utility infrastructure that they build. So they are incentivized to build, baby, build, even if that's not what we need. So over the course of the past 20 years, their increase in spending has gone up 300%, while peak electricity demand has remained flat. And it's remained flat in large part due to rooftop solar. And yet they're wildly spending anyway. And the regulators are not doing their job to rein that in, to really look at that and scrutinize that. And that is part of how we got here. But make no mistake, when Mike is saying that's what the utilities are driving for, yes, it is, because the utilities really like when rooftop solar is put far, far away out in the desert somewhere, because then they can build all those poles and wires back out to the communities that need them and make all that money as they do. So just wanted to point that out. And lastly, I did see somebody put it in the chat, but rooftop solar is one of these cool things where it's actually bipartisan. So we have strong support from Republicans and Democrats in the California Assembly and in the California State Senate. It's a really interesting thing that's happening right now. And so this is not a moment to discount a legislator who is a Republican. We had lots of Republicans vote the right way in the Assembly. And this is an ask you can make of them. If you are sitting with a Republican legislator, please call them and ask your state senator to vote no on AB 942 as amended. Same thing with the Democrats. This is an area where, as long as the legislator understands this is a contract and rooftop solar helps everybody, they are just as likely to vote with us as anything else. So just wanted to toss that out there. Thank you again, Mike.
This is actually coming with Trump's big bill. because there's a lot of anti-solar stuff in there. And some of the Republican legislators, especially in the red states, Texas, Iowa, where you have really big wind and solar, that a lot of Republicans, maybe not enough, but a few Republicans anyway, are coming out for renewables as well. So there you go.
Cool thing. Yeah. Texas
But
is
it just,
eclipsing California, so it's a big
well,
deal there.
Texas by far has the biggest supply of wind generated electricity. I mean, the wind power coming out of West Texas is gargantuan. In fact, in West Texas at night, electricity is free. It's actually too cheap to meter in West Texas because of the wind at night there. So just like the solar in the Central Valley. Okay, Steve Caruso, and then we'll. And by the way, Steve is not the guy who ran for mayor in LA. But go ahead, Steve.
That's Rick, and I could be related, but I'm not going there. But any other subsidies to the utilities in California? And yes, Gavin Newsom should be arrested by Trump because he's not doing us any favors. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm for that. Absolutely. Go ahead, Kaylee.
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm not quite sure I understood your question about
Subsidies for the utilities that are, I mean, we could subsidize the people or we could subsidize, they're subsidizing oil and gas, but, subsidize wind and solar, that's not happening,
I see. Yes, I see what you're saying. And I appreciate you saying that subsidizing wind and solar is not happening because that's a very common misconception. There has never been a rooftop solar subsidy for the general public in California. Ever. That's not what net metering is. It's a fair trade for the extra energy solar users share with their neighbors, which then makes the grid less expensive for everybody. So in terms of subsidizing the utilities, there's been a big question about whether or not that rate of return percentage is too high. So they're getting 8 to 10%, some sources cite higher, but at least 8 to 10% on all those poles and wires and infrastructure that they're building. That has led to record-breaking profits from all three utilities in the past several years, but especially last year. And then we saw rates shoot right up to follow. Like it's an almost one-to-one comparison of rates rising, utility spending, everything going up, and then the regulators failing to do their job of scrutinizing that spending and making a decision about whether or not that spending is actually justified. And so they have continued to just allow rate hike after rate hike after rate hike. And I might suggest that that falls under that category. So all of that should be far more deeply scrutinized by both the regulators and by the legislators. And there was a legislator last year who tried to close the revolving door between the monopoly utilities and the regulators, and that bill was killed in its first committee, which tells you something about the level of power that the monopoly utilities have. But the grassroots has the public support, and that's all of you. And I think we can make a real difference here.
And I would add that rooftop solar does not need if you had a clear market, if you had a Milton Friedman free market, solar would take over in a heartbeat. Because all the other technologies are subsidized. Solar doesn't need subsidies because if we had an actual marketplace, because it's so much cheaper and so much more efficient and so much more job producing than any other source of electricity. Both solar and wind are at the very, very top of the heap in terms of viability. That's why 80% of the new electric capacity being installed in the world today is wind or solar with battery backup. And so these guys are all just using every trick they can to subsidize dirty energy and to kill off the clean competition. And that's why Gavin Newsom is so loathsome in all this. And yes, Steve, I would support him being arrested, but for other causes. All right, Kaylee, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to jump in? We still have 100 and some people on this. 109. We have the longest attention span of everybody in America. But
love it.
Kaylee, you do really great stuff. And why don't you stick with it? I know you're a Californian. We want to now talk about what's going on. Mickey Leader, we're going to give you the first shot here. As I pointed out, I just got a text that they are sending the Marines into LA. I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
almost incomprehensible, but this is the Reichstag moment. There's no doubt about it. So, Mickey Leader, you're unmuted. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. That's what I was going to talk about, but I see Julie was on and she must have given you everything we need to know about District 17 in Rockland County. And
Yeah.
that's where I live. And
Oh,
yes, there's a
okay.
huge discrepancy now that they've examined the voting rolls for 24. So moving from there, I was at an event where everybody is now saying, if you read my comp and all the history, that he was waiting for marching. So my one cautionary tale is we better stop marching and we better start having, meetings, etc., because all you need is marching, and that's his little, red flag. He's going to send out the Marines everywhere, and he's going to send out every possible military and declare martial law and stop all elections. And I've been basically saying this for 6 months. Don't trust we're going to have a 26 election. I'm very worried about that. Very, very, very worried. And unfortunately, most people are not paying attention. They're not looking. They don't care. They're busy with their own lives. You're right. The Democrats did absolutely nothing. And I've been saying since Julie told me all about the problems with the machines, every Democrat, I was at a big meeting on Wednesday and I tried to bring it up and they were poo-pooing me. All of the elected officials in Rockland County, I said, we have problems with elections with those machines. And, I sent the information to Patrick Carroll, God bless him. He at least is listening. And thank God you guys were able to get the court case. But we better doing a much better job of telling people, don't be so sure we're having elections. Get your behind out there and make it as difficult as you can. I'm praying for the Democratic elections not to be screwed up in New York City and in Florida and any other places that they're replacing people right now. So,
Well, let's
yes,
run
my
through.
children are in Los Angeles, my 3 grandchildren and my son and daughter-in-law, and they are quite concerned. They're right in downtown near the Grove, very concerned about what's happening out there, very concerned. So,
Well, let's run through the litany of the Democratic Party failure on elections. In 2004 to 2000, Greg Palast showed very clearly that the voter rolls were completely rigged by Governor Jeb Bush at the time, and the vote count in South Florida was clearly subjected to a fascist mob, the Brooks Brothers mob, for whom 3 current Supreme Court justices worked: John Roberts, Brent, whatever his name is, and Amy Coney Barrett. They're all involved. Brett Kavanaugh. They're all involved with the Brooks Brothers mob. The physically assaulted people who are doing the vote count in South Florida. And Al Gore's response was to do nothing. He did file a lawsuit, but it was an incompetent legal action. And as Vice President of the United States, Al Gore refused to allow a constitutional legal challenge to the electoral delegation from Florida. It was put forward by the Black Caucus, and as vice president, Al Gore prevented it from happening in the election that he just had won and was wrongfully taken from him. And the Democratic Party did nothing. In Ohio, 2004, more of the same. We saw 100 different ways, Bob Petrakis and me, the way that election was stolen. We presented John Kerry with the data. The Democratic Party was completely informed of what had happened in Ohio 2004. Their response was to attack us. The Republicans couldn't have cared less, but the Democrats attacked us. And by the way, of course, after 2000 in Florida, the Democrats spent 25 years attacking Ralph Nader, who did not affect the election in Florida. And if Al Gore had won his home state in Tennessee, where Nader had no deciding ballot, Gore would have become president. But they had, he did nothing there either. In 2016, you had three very dubious vote counts in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. As I mentioned earlier, in Michigan, we had, because of Jill Stein and Bob Petrakis, who worked with her, we had a legal decision requiring a recount, and it never happened because Hillary Clinton refused to cooperate. And then in 24, we had, God knows, just tons of stuff that we will go into in greater detail later. So the Democratic Party, we cannot count on any sane or forceful response in 2026 that would protect a viable outcome in that election. And there are tons of things coming down the pike designed to disenfranchise women and many other constituencies. So that's a lead up, Mickey. Thank you for that.
I wanted to add a couple of words. One, I don't know if you're aware that the Pride Parade banned Jews on Sunday. I don't know if you're aware of that. That's frightening, even more frightening to me, what's happening. And that's in LA. My children told me about it, but it was online also. Bottom line is we have got to be very careful and not give Trump and his legions a reason to call out more of the military, and stop thinking that we'll just go to the courts and we'll stop it, because we're going to have no courts, and we're going to have no rights and no elections. It's all in Mein Kampf, and in studying the German history, they haven't invented this on their own. And if you follow all of the other democratic countries that lost their freedom, they all have a version of this, and it is beyond description terrifying. So,
yeah, thank you, Mickey. It is indeed. We got some hands, but the one person that hasn't spoken yet, who has a hand up, is Tatanka. Tatanka is the chair of the KPFK board here in LA. Tatanka, go ahead, please. There you are. You're clear.
Thank you, Harvey.
We still have 108 people with us, so
I think we need more. We have to come back next week. There's a number of people that we need to speak, and we need to get more on KPFK as well. So there's so much that's been reported. One good person that would be good is this guy Ron Gotches, who is a community organizer, was interviewed by Amy Goodman and Gonzalez on Democracy Now. Under LA Under Siege, I think was the title about it. But basically, he reported on all the kidnappings going on throughout the city, people being sent not just to El Salvador, but to Mexico City and to other Latin American countries, going on right now. And basically saying what the comment earlier about the court system. I mean, Newsom's taking the right stand, but he hasn't told the National Guard to stand down, that this is a state issue. And of course, he probably isn't doing it because they would probably not listen to him. Doesn't mean he shouldn't take a stand on that, because this is blitzkrieg. This is going on very fast. And yes, I think Trump is setting up to declare a state of national emergency. And with the Marines coming out, another thing, and he's talking publicly about this, that we're going to need more and more, and having the gall, the violator in chief, to say we're not going to tolerate violence. If you just watch the video of how they came out last night and firing the explosive things, firing the rubber bullets, putting the tear gas, and basically wanting a confrontation. So I think it would be good to, get people that are involved and know about this and have been preparing for it, from people with Homies Unidos that I can help get on this show. People with Father Greg Boyle and all those folks, and all the organizers that know that this is coming and have been offering refuge for people, and still, you know, people being taken off the streets, out of their homes, out of their workplaces by La Migra, by ICE. And it's something that is happening in real time. And I think it's basically going public with the war against the people. This is a war against the people in the name of the President of the United States and in the name of Project 2025. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, Tatanka. Well, stay with us, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, man. I mean, this is it. This is not, we've been predicting this. This is not like coming out of the blue. And it's not accidental that it's coming in the middle of this fight for this big bill. You know, he's lost his principal backer, and now you know, a lot of wavering in the Congress. He wants the bill to be put in the background so that they can, you know, slip it through while the Reichstag is burning.
And
Steve,
I also I want to say something that I forgot to say.
go ahead.
It is a real time for a massive national global crystallization of a nonviolent movement, and at the same time to acknowledge that if people's loved ones, if the aunties and the abuela, the grandparents and the grandkids are being picked up and kidnapped, people are not going to stand for it. They're going to do what they can. And throughout the night, there was a battle going on in LA, and the police had to back off because people were taking a stand. They know that they're relatives and they're targeted because of any skin that is brown or black, anything other than a white man is being targeted. And the president of SEIU, you know, I think just a few hours he got out on something like, may have even been $50,000 bond, you
Yeah,
know,
David
following
Huerta.
arrest. Yeah, David Huerta.
Huerta.
And his interview is very telling, you know. I mean, people are trying to exert their constitutional rights and they're being violated. And so, yes, they need to be challenged in court. But if we know anything from Trump, he's been challenged in court. He's outrun the law. He's going to continue to outrun the law. The wheels of justice move slowly and he moves fast.
Where's the Supreme Court and the contempt charges? Because they've been told once that they need to follow the law, they need to have warrants, and not an administrative warrant from ICE. It needs to be a judge to sign a warrant. So how can they go in and raid these places without doing their due diligence and picking out everyone and then get a real judge to sign off on these warrants? They're not doing it. They're totally illegal. And this is ICE against the people and Trump's SS Nazis. That's it. Bottom line, it's the people against Trump. It's over. Trump, resign. You're a rapist. Stephen Miller is the murderer. Let's get them out and put them in jail. Thank you.
All right, Lynn Feinerman and Myla. Tatanka, stay with us. Lynn Feinerman, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been following the LA situation. I just wanted to tag something onto what Tatanka said. And you know, it's really it was very inspiring to me to first get into observing what's happening in San Diego, because most of the people who were chasing those ICE people out of San Diego were white. There was a really large contingent of white neighbors who just were fed up, had it. And I think that we also have to look at that that's the same thing happening in LA. And I think that's what's panicking the rump and his people, is that, you know, white people aren't just sitting around, you know, saying, oh, that's not my situation or my business. They're out there. They are out there protecting everybody. And I think that that needs to be acknowledged.
Wow.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you,
Lynn. You're
Lynn.
right on with that. You're right on with that.
Myla, you're in the belly of the beast.
That's
What do you got to tell us?
well, on a personal note, our comrade Jan Goodman's daughter, for years, has been participating in jail support for people who are protesting. She's done it for national protests as well as local protests. And yesterday, she was downtown LA holding up a sign with a phone number that people could call if they needed jail support. And normally what people do is she asks people to write the number down on their hand. So if they, if anything, if their phone gets taken from them, whatever, that they at least have that number to call. And she was shot in the hand with either a flashbang or a rubber bullet by the California Highway Patrol. And she went to the emergency room, and she was experiencing tremendous pain that was radiating all the way from her hand to her shoulder. Luckily, no bones were broken, but yeah, she's family. And this is very close to home, and it's just extraordinary. I hope she's doing well. She's been doing amazing work for years now in terms of supporting protesters in the footsteps of her parents. I don't know if you're aware of this, Sluggo and Tatanka, but both Jerry Manpearl and Jan Goodman for years, early in their law careers, supported protesters in civil actions. And there's one other person of note who, I mean, there were a lot of people who were shot, but there was a young woman, a reporter from Australia, who was reporting live, and her report was being broadcast to Australia. And one of the not California, it was California Highway Patrol who shot Terry Goodman, Jan's daughter, but it was LAPD who turned and aimed his rifle at this reporter from Australia. And Steve has the image on the news. He actually turned and aimed at her while she was reporting live and hit her in the leg. Thank goodness she is doing well, and she has continued to report today. And she went back and she reported, but one of the videos actually shows the LAPD officer, I presume, turning and aiming his rifle at her while she was reporting live.
You know, as Americans, who's ever going to come to this country again? You know, we've got the World Cup coming up, we've got the Olympics coming up, and we've got ban on what, 14 countries for people, every one of which I'm sure has got a team either in the soccer or at the Olympics. And here, you know, shame on us. What an embarrassment, what a horror to have our country be the perpetrator of such insanity. It's just, and this woman, I saw that clip before, and Terry, you know, we love Terry. She's just the greatest, and here she's been shot, and it's just beginning. I mean, this is all about Trump getting this bill through the Congress and assuming the reins as a dictator, which he
And
said
if
he
you
was going to
and
do.
this intends to go national, and the hope of the opposition, I'm sure, is that if you can make an example of California, who else is going to resist?
You got it. Okay, well, here we have someone who's experienced at resisting. Mimi German, do you want to speak, please? Everybody, it's at the top of the hour. Still have 104 people with us. We're going to go till for another 20 minutes. So we welcome your comments on this. This is, you know, this is you are there, for God's sakes. Go ahead, Mimi, please, and then Heidi.
So it's really a shame to me that people from liberals to progressives from 2017 through Trump's entire reign through Black Lives Matter shrugged off by calling all of us in Portland basically just names. You know, we were out there in Portland in 2017 and 2018. We took over the ICE headquarters, and the news portrayed us as radical, you know, whether it was Antifa or whatever, you know, that it made us the bad guys, you know, and we were the ones getting gas masks. We were the ones camping, surrounding the entire ICE building and talking with immigrants as they were on their way into scheduled appointments, asking them, do you want to do this differently? You know, or do you want us to go in with you? Because there is a really good probability that they're going to take you. And this has been happening. My point is, this has been happening for years now. And all of a sudden it's happening in California, and it's like, oh no, look what's happening. Well, yeah, it's happening. And until people can get their heads wrapped around the concept of fighting back and all the spokes of what that means, and allowing those things to occur rather than vilifying those of us who choose, I'm not saying violence, but definitely fighting back, you know, and not just sitting on a sidewalk and filming, you know, stop fucking filming, stop filming, get out there, push these ICE people, these cops, push them back, do something that is not just about filming them. There's enough people out there who are going to have their phones out, you know? And until we recognize that there are different ways to pursue this, rather than vilifying those of us who are brave enough to do it, maybe we can get somewhere in actually showing that it's not just people showing up, it's people circling ICE, people circling the cops and saying, oh no, and getting them out. I'm just putting this out there because it's been very frustrating for a lot of us who have been in this for a really long time to watch what's happening in LA, you know?
Right. And it's certainly no accident that it's LA. I mean, LA is, you know, I love LA. And there's a great Randy Newman song, I love LA. I never thought I'd say I don't love LA, but I don't think it's accidental that this is broken out in LA. I mean, and it's very clearly targeted. And, you know, Heidi, go ahead, then Mike, then Myla. Heidi,
Yes, can you hear me? Am
yes.
I unmuted?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. First of all, I want to say, is there anything that we can do to help this lady that had her hand shot, the law person? Because I'm thinking that if there's something that we as an organization can do to help, like maybe not in terms of money, but in terms of people that work with our organization to help get them to be mobilized, to make phone calls or something, is there anything that people might think to be able to help her? And the other thing that I want to say is that,
well, here, wait, Heidi, stop there. Let's deal with that. Then you'll get to finish, okay? Myla, you know, we're very close with Terry. What is she, 25? I mean, she's
She looks 25. She's growing up, Herbie.
okay. Well, we've known her parents. We've known her for a long, long time. Myla, do you want to speak to that? And then Heidi, you'll get your second shot. Go ahead.
Was a little girl. I've known Terry. I think one of the best things to do is to this was the California Highway Patrol that shot Terry, and I think that comes under the purview of Gavin Newsom. And I think that phone calls to Gavin Newsom expressing outrage would be one thing. And I'm not sure, Tatanka or Harvey, maybe you have some other ideas. Terry is okay.
Well,
but
let's get her to join us next week.
yeah,
Maybe come on with us.
yeah.
Okay. She's very close to us, and she's like my daughter to me.
In terms of the story, it's very, very clear what the talking points are that they want the media to pick up. First, you create a situation. You tell the police, we just want you to do your job, but we don't want to put your lives in danger. And then you put them in a situation, a no-win situation, where if people are not going to have their rights violated, they're going to stand up to the police. So then the police feel like they have a right to say, we have a right to protect ourselves. The whole thing is a setup. And we have to, we have to see what Newsom's legitimate job is in the state, which is to stand down with the highway patrol, with I don't even know how it works with the Marines. I don't know. Does that go to federal, or is that's in the state? That goes to
Oh
federal.
no, they're definitely
But with the National Guard, nobody asked Trump in. This is unprecedented. You don't go in just stepping over the mayor unless you want to actually take the state out on this case, okay? So we have to be framing this issue for the nation to say this is complete overreach, it's complete violation of constitutional rights, it's complete violation of state rights. We have to frame the thing such that people, when they see a conflict, I have to tell you, I was on a film crew during the Obama election, not about Obama, but we covered both the Democratic and Republican election. And at the Republican election, we covered a protest which was a mile away from St. Paul, a beautiful afternoon where an entire city park with it was a family affair, and they had indigenous young people dancing and nobody doing anything violative. It was like a return to the 60s, and all of a sudden from the four corners the police come out and they attack. Anyway, I was interviewing somebody later who I found out had come back from Iraq, and he had worked his way up the channel, and he had been at the Democratic National Convention protecting a wealthy asset, and he was there at the Republican Convention protecting a wealthy asset. And as I started talking with him, I said, "What was this all about from your perspective?" He said, "Please turn the camera off." He said, "First of all, let's look at the cars. You name a car here at this intersection, and I'll tell you who they are." And there were like a dozen cars. And they're all SWAT teams from as far away as San Jose and all the heck over the place. And he says, okay, they're getting time and a half or double time, a lot of money. How many helicopters in the sky? What does that cost? All the police coming in here. What you're seeing here is, and then there were these young people that were the early Antifa. Remember, these are the young people organizing against fascism. I had conversations with them saying, when you have to watch out when you hood yourself and when you dress in black, you're so ripe for infiltration, because anybody can do something with that image and just turn it against you, which is, of course, what happened. After a while, it became totally infiltrated. And so anyway, when they came in, they picked up all these young people and took them in vans. And I said, what was that about? And they said, people's napalm. And I said, what? And I said, and he put like this, yeah, people's napalm. Oh, you mean what they spray in their eyes to protect themselves from the gas? And he said, yeah, people's napalm. So that's the protest. The ruse. And he said, the Republicans have a whole unit dealing with the legality of the situation. They've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to violate the laws. They're going to take care of that. The purpose of all this is to create an event. And there was a standoff as the police came in with horses, trampled people. There was a standoff, and it was a nonviolent standoff by the people, but it was angry. It was people resisting, and everything was broken up. The ultimate goal, he said, was to have something on the news. And if people can have something on the news, and if they can catch the angry people, even if they're nonviolent, people are going to feel more safe because the news will be programmed to say, oh, see, our money is being well spent. We are being protected from these angry young people. Okay. You are seeing the growth of the largest, if you had to make money, just anything that has to do with security and protection over the next several decades, because he said what's happening is the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the whole thing is going to be violative. They're going to violate the rights of people over the next several decades. And in order to have the legitimacy of it, it has to look as if they're protecting us. Well, this is just the latest incident they're trying to sell that.
Right.
But we have Trump, and we have an opportunity in the media, I think, to really let people know what's really happening here. So as the protests go on, and as people do whatever they can do to assert their rights to not be searched and taken somewhere and have their bags taken, etc., and to not have their family kidnapped out of school or home or work, and they have the right not to have their family kidnapped. While that is going on, we need to project this because, during the civil rights movement that those of us are older went on, and I, almost got a year on Harvey. I'm 80 now. One of the famous quotes that Martin Luther King was, when you make nonviolence impossible, you make violence inevitable. And so we need a strong nonviolent movement for the people of the United States to observe that the violators are the corporations, are the Project 2025, is the President of the United States, and those violated are the people. And this is the program they're doing. This is our killing fields. This is our Reichstag moment, whatever you want to call it. So we need to get this framed right, and we need to build a coalition of people in the country on all the issues related to this, including the Supreme Court. There's a slim chance that the three middle Roberts people could, in an unholy alliance, align with the three liberal and progressive folks against the Trump people, because there's a lot of talk by the right wing in Washington that Trump is you can't count on him for anything. And it makes we may be able to have a Supreme Court. It may not happen, but resist the worst, the posse comitatus. Still, then he's going to do it. Okay, he's going to violate it. So we got a big problem on our hands.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Tatanka. We'll go back to Heidi. Heidi, you got a second run here, and then we'll go to Mike and Myla.
Yes, what I was going to talk about is the fact that we seem to be talking more about the violence and what to do to counter the violence. But I think that we need to really look at what we can do to do a civil nonviolence movement like they did in the 70s, in the 60s, and the 70s, to really train people to do the nonviolence actions. And I mean, I've studied Gandhian philosophy, and Martin Luther King Jr. and Cornel West was a mentor of mine. And I think that we need to look at what we can do to have an organized way to do this in a way that's going to also be taken more seriously by the people that are biting their tongues for voting for Trump, because I think that we need to reach out to people. We need to look beyond just the us versus them of it and look at the gray between, because I think it's in the gray between that's going to help us to come up with some alternative, so some sort of like alternative outside of the box type thinking that will bring us to something that will actually bring both sides together.
Heidi, we got 5 minutes left, so if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could wrap
okay,
up,
that's good,
please.
Heidi.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
That's what I was
Thank you,
trying to
Heidi.
say.
Well,
Great,
then, of course,
absolutely great.
the two words that are that remain unspoken are general strike.
Yeah, Slugger,
And
if I may, I was wanted to
go ahead, Mike, and then
speak to what
Myla.
Heidi was saying. We absolutely do need to start planning for a general strike for radical non-participation and to make ourselves non-violent and non-governable. Because we cannot, Tatanka, I love you and I love your optimism, but I don't have any respect for the Supreme Court being able to enforce decisions against Trump. I'm afraid he'll do the Andrew Jackson thing and say they've made their decision, let them enforce it. I think the only thing we can rely on is ourselves and each other. I think we really need to start saying, do not buy anything that's not essential at all. Put off all major purchases for a couple of reasons. One is Trump has got the economy on a collision course with oblivion. Lauren is saying no buy Fridays. That's just the beginning. I'm saying don't buy anything that you don't absolutely need. Make what you can, share with your neighbors, hunker down. This is an emergency. We may not realize it now, but at any moment we'll look back and say, what was I doing living like this was business as usual?
Yeah,
It's not
thank
business
you.
as usual. We've got
Thank
to,
you. Thank you, Mike. And
make emergency plans and contingency plans. And as Tatanka, thank you so much for stressing, and Heidi for stressing, we must stay nonviolent. The second that we're violent whatsoever, Trump has already called in the Marines. This is the emergency we're talking about. The emergency's here. Trump has had a staffer of a member of Congress arrested or handcuffed without it being arrested for nothing. They claimed that they were harboring rioters when there was no riot. We're looking at a time where members of Congress and their staffs are being intimidated by police state action. We are on the precipice of a police state. And I'll just end with that.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Myla, quickly, and then Dave Saltman, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's really important that we understand that we do not want to give Trump the excuse to go to martial law and to suspend elections. And so we have to be very careful in the actions that we take. General strike is great, nonviolence is imperative. And I'm gonna we only have a minute left, and I will defer to David Saltman.
And we're going to take this up, of course, next week. We will continue this incredible discussion. Hopefully, we'll have Terry with us. And wow, what an incredible crew. Go ahead, David.
We did have a successful general strike in this country in 1934 with the establishment of the ILWU, the West Coast Longshoremen's Union. It began with the closure of all 7 ports on the West Coast with the union's aid. And it spread to, it wasn't every single city in the country, but Toledo, Ohio, Minneapolis. There were a number of cities that declared a general strike. It was so successful that it basically led to the 4 terms being served by FDR and the end of the Hoover overhang on the American economy. I think it's worth studying as a historical playbook. That is all.
Thank you, David. Absolutely. Boy, incredible stuff. We are obviously going to return to this next week. Tatanka, you get the last word. Tatanka, did you just...
Yeah, before I sign us all off, along with the general strike, I think if we can talk about communities of resilience, every community wants to be able to protect itself. So it's a way we can work with people from all points of view on the nonviolent movement that we need. We can talk about more later, but si se puede, let's all work together and let's build a coalition the likes of which this country has never seen in a time when we need the impossibility to become possible.
Well, let's just start to view Donald Trump as a great teacher, and who has shaken us from the complacency of the democracy we grew up in and really made us appreciate. And we want to be able to tell our children and grandchildren about the great resistance that saved our democracy. That's what we're aiming for. Mimi German, thank you so much for what you've said. And by the way, just for a footnote, Mimi German and I were both on a peace ship that was rammed by on a peace ship that was rammed by a police vessel, and I kind of feel we're back in that movement again. So, Steve Caruso, did you want? Thank you, Steve Caruso, by the way, for engineering. Mike Hurst for co-convening. And Wendy Liederman, wherever you are, we do miss you. And Terry Goodman, we hope you're feeling better. We want you with us next week. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, I got a video blast from the past. It's not relevant to LA, but things in general. And you ready here? Hold on a second.
Okay, we'll use it as a sign off, everybody. It's 4:20. Time to go out and toke up. We had 130 people with us today. Next week, we're going to really revisit this Reichstag moment. It is a moment to remember. Let's hope our memory of it is as a moment that we rose up and saved what's left of American democracy. Thank you, everybody. No nukes, and we'll see you next week. Steve, go ahead.
Yes, Bob Fitrakis in Santa Monica, 2005. Let me see if I can start it here.
No nukes, no kings, no Führers.
Oh,
You
there you
got
go. Go. Where's the playbook?
Let's see, I'm billed here as talking about what really happened in Ohio. Let me just say, I have to be careful because the Attorney General wants to sanction me, and whatever I say could be used against me. They stole the election. Let me try to put this in some perspective, because I believe that people in this country, not obviously out here on the West Coast or the left coast, but many people still in the heartland are politically socialized, inoculated in many ways to the realities of what's been going on in the world. Is that, first of all, you have the son of the former CIA director who for decades stole elections throughout the third world in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it's documented in the public record. They overthrew the government of Iran, the popular Mossadegh government. They overthrew the democratic government of Guatemala in 1954. They overthrew Allende in 1973. They overthrew the Greek government and installed a military junta in 1967. They overthrew and caused the collapse of the Labour peace government in Australia in the 1970s. They used mainframe computer tapes. You can see this in Hedrick Smith, The Power Game, the president, to attempt to keep Marcos in power when Aquino rose up against him in a popular revolution. They used mainframe computers to bring Indira to power over Noriega, their former man in Panama. So there's been a long ongoing practice of the U.S. subverting democracies throughout the world. Many of these people ended up being cut from the CIA in the late 70s. When Stansfield Turner took over, and they went into the campaign of George Herbert Walker Bush.
All right, you guys. Thank you, Steve.
Did somebody pull the plug on Bob there? Was he grabbed by goons?
Yeah, I can put the video up. I'll put the link in the room, and if people, we can attach it to our thing too. I think this is it here.
Wonderful
But it's
video.
in the chat. It's 12 minutes long, so that was a good part of it, but it's very I mean, we've been doing this for how many decades, Harvey? It's like we're
Been doing
not,
it since the beginning of the country.
Yeah.
yeah, well, time.
Since before the Declaration of Independence, when the Europeans attacked our indigenous brothers and sisters, our hosts, who welcomed us, and we slaughtered them.
And here we are. So now the chicken, the turkey has definitely come home to roost, and it's now or never. We've got to face up to all the great blessings we've had and all the bad stuff we've done. This is the karmic moment. So let's figure it out.
See you all next week.
It's an intelligence test. No nukes, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Stay safe. Don't participate in the economy.
Well, absolutely. We'll figure the day and the general strike, and we'll move on.
I think we start now.
You
Or
got
the
it.
violence economy. Stay away from
Okay,
it.
you guys.
Thank you.
That's right.